Start off today with some good news because we actually do have good news on the show sometimes, and that is the British High Court opens door for Assange to appeal to the UK Supreme Court, and this is from Kevin Gustola at the Dissenter. Of course, Kevin is a previous guest of this show to talk about the Assange issue as well as other whistleblower issues. But here he writes that WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange prevailed in his effort to obtain certification from the British High Court of Justice, which would allow him to appeal their prior decision to the Supreme Court. And so I guess this is like, taking it from an appeals court up to the Supreme Court in the United States. Now, I'm not sure how it works exactly in the US, but apparently in the UK, the High Court actually has to sign off on whether the appeal could be submitted to the Supreme Court, which is what happened. So according to Stella Morris, who of course is Julian Assange's fiance, I don't know if they actually were able to get married, but they've certainly been engaged and everything. Says that what happened in court today is precisely what we wanted to happen. The High Court certified that we had raised a point of law of general public importance and that the Supreme Court has grounds to hear this appeal. The situation is now that the Supreme Court has to decide whether to hear the appeal, but make no mistake, we won in court. So at least from Stella Morris, it does sound like, there's some good news here, even though, of course, this does mean that Assange will be embroiled in the UK justice system for an extended period of time, right? Because not only does the Supreme Court, I guess, have to, hear the appeal itself, but they also have to just decide whether to take up the appeal or not. And I believe the decision by the High Court of Justice to allow the extradition of Assange was pretty early in December, maybe mid-December. I think around the 12th or the 14th, maybe it was. And so it took like a month and a half to get this ruling from the High Court. And so, if we look at that timeline, we're talking about, maybe even summer by the time Assange could have a resolution in the UK court system or something like that, which is really insane for somebody in the health that he's in. And of course, he's in a prison that's had COVID outbreaks, and Assange is somebody who is at a heightened risk there. So, this is really important that Assange got this a chance to, make this further appeal. However, it is far short of anything close to him being out of a position where he's going to end up for the rest of his life in a U.S. prison. So that's what's going on in the Assange case. I think, they're appealing on multiple grounds, although from the Kevin Gustola article here, it did sound like the UK High Court did try to limit somewhat what the appeal grounds could be, but I would guess the Supreme Court, although I don't understand the UK justice system as well as the US one, of course, would, have grounds to, whether this appeal is just going to be over if the US guarantee. So that's a big part of this, is that the lower court initially ruled that Assange couldn't be extradited because of the conditions that he would face in American prisons are just so cruel that somebody in Assange's position would likely commit suicide because of the cruelty of the U.S. prisons. And so initially, that's the ruling, and then the High Court overturns that based on the fact that the U.S. then offered guarantees that Assange wouldn't be kept in the worst U.S. prisons with the worst conditions, like the special administration measures, which I broke it down in another show, so I won't get into too much detail here. But and so the High Court said, well, as long as the U.S. offered those guarantees that he won't end up in that position, then he could go ahead and be extradited. And now the Assange team is, I think, appealing on that ground, but I would hope that, they could also extend their appeal to the other original decisions made in the lower and the High Court around Assange's mental health, and also, his status as a journalist and how he shouldn't be able to be extradited for the crime of doing journalism and all that. So a lot of important stuff going on here, and as this progresses to the UK Supreme Court, I'll continue to talk about it on the show. of course, there's a lot of concerns about Assange's health. And, while this is a victory in court for Assange, every day that Assange remains behind bars is a victory for, the warmongers, the war state, and the U.S. empire. And so, it's really terrible that he's embroiled in this endless justice process at this point, where even if he ends up getting out of prison at the end of this, who knows how long it's going to be, and how much damage is going to be done to him in the time. He already suffered at least some kind of small stroke back in October. So yeah, a lot going on with Assange.